Well, good morning, Lufkin Central and Online Worship Community. Jason Hollinger, the campus and community minister here, and for our time in Jesus and Coffee, as we have mentioned, we began yesterday morning talking about the different themes throughout Second Samuel. Last night we watched a Bible Project video of overview of Second Samuel, and for our time this morning, I want us to jump right into chapter 1, where David hears about Saul's death and just really kind of his response to it as well. He gets this report back, and then in verse 17 begins a very uh, interesting reading that some of us may struggle with, because if you recall, Saul had become jealous and envious of David and had sought out to kill him. Many occasions, David is hiding out, hiding out from in caves, just from Saul, trying to avoid what Saul was trying to bring about. And what's interesting is, and I think a very valuable lesson for us begins in verse 17, where it says his response to it. He says, first off, actually, in verse 16, that the Lord's anointed had been killed, and a very important reminder comes to us in this, that yes, there may be those that we have disagreements with, that we kind of go back and forth with, but they're in a position of leadership for a reason. And Saul, yes, even though God had left Saul in his kingdom, if you will, and this transition of power and presence was going over to David, he was still uh, the anointed one of God. And verse 17 says, David took up his lament concerning Jonathan. No, wait a minute. Let me reread that. David took up this lament concerning Saul and his son Jonathan. Now remember, we had talked about the deep friendship, that was not just surface level friendship between David and Jonathan, but he has this lament. He has this response of sadness over his best friend, if you will, who also perished in the midst of this, but also the Lord's anointed, who, yes, had sought out to kill him, who tried on countless occasions, but was still the Lord's anointed, was still the king. And it said, David took up this lament concerning Saul and his son Jonathan. I think that's very important for us to remember, that even in spite of differences, and this is your challenge for today, even in spite of differences that we may have with one another, even that, that sometimes we just, there's so much frustration there. My challenge and my encouragement to you is to pray for those in positions of leadership and positions of authority. Pray that there is this ability to work together. There's the ability of for us to understand who we are and who they are, and that ultimately we would ask that God would guide them, that God would lead them to make the decisions that they need to make. And that's very important for us to remember that. It's very important for us to be aware of that, to be aware of that opportunity to pray for someone, even those that may seek to harm us. Think later in the Bible story, in the Beatitudes, pray for those who persecute you. How about you? Are you praying for those who persecute you? Are you loving not just your friends but your enemies? Are you praying for not just your friends but your enemies? A little something to think about. I can't wait to hear and see how it goes. Y'all have a great day. God bless.
Lord bless you and keep you. children